Now it's time for me to share with you a little bit about what's on my little mind today. All righty, just take care of this. Perfect. Okay. So, as I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's on my mind today. Our Torah reading today was Parshat Va'edchanan. Normally, we call the Shabbat based upon the name of the Torah reading. So, while many people call this Shabbat Va'edchanan, because of the Haftorah, we call it Shabbat Nachamu, that we should be comforted. So, in this week's Torah reading, it says, when you are in distress because all these things have befallen you, and in the end, return to and obey the Lord your God. That's what it says in today's Torah reading. So, this was long before the temples were destroyed, long before. All right, why is this not working? Come on. So, again, the Shabbat is known as Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort, and it's named after the first two words in the Haftorah. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. It always comes on the Shabbat following the fast day of Tisha B'Av, which this is, the saddest day of the Jewish year. And as I mentioned last week, even our sadness contains seeds of healing and joy. Jewish tradition teaches that the Mashiach will be born on Tisha B'Av. And we all know the phrase, you shall reap what you sow. By the way, that comes from Psalms 126, verse 5. Chapter 126, verse 5. And it says in Psalms, they who sow in tears shall reap with songs of joy. And from that, we got the expression that we all understand, you shall reap what you sow. It's kind of interesting. But part of this Shabbat's Torah reading tells us of the sadness that Bnei Israel will face after they arrive in the Promised Land. Why would you do that? Why would you tell the people Israel about the sadness you're going to face in the Promised Land when you get there? On Tisha B'Av morning, we read the same thing. This is what we read from this Torah reading. And it says that they will chase after false gods and God will exile them from their homeland. So it's predicting what really did happen in our Jewish history. So even the scary prophecy hints that this tragedy contains hints of healing. So God will remember them in their distress, and in the end, they will return to God. What begins in sadness ends in comfort. So you and I know that everyone must experience times of sadness, and some of us will suffer unbearable tragedies. We all suffer tragedies, but some are unbearable. This week's Torah reading teaches us that there can be healing in those. As we say in the 23rd Psalm, though I walk, most people think it's though I walk through the valley. No, it's though I walk in the valley of death, I fear no harm, for you are going to be with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. We all know that. It's so famous. But faith in God brings us healing, and our Jewish tradition gives us the strength during the most difficult times to continue on. So how else can people find comfort after going through times of really suffering real pain and anguish? How do you do it? Sometimes we say, I can't even believe that person can live on with this, with the horrific life they've had. Well, you know the expression, time heals all wounds? The Tanakh agrees with that when it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and 4, to every, or 1 through 4 actually, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under the sun, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to wail and a time to dance. No, not in time can make the pain disappear entirely, but time can allow people to rebuild their lives. Jewish tradition teaches that one says Kaddish, the memorial prayer for a loved one, for a limited time. We don't say it forever. The maximum is 11 months. That's it. You can't go more than that. And there comes a moment when one tries to move beyond mourning. All right? A second source of comfort is speaking with other people. As a rabbi, I have had plenty of experiences when I listen to people speak who are suffering. When they finish their speaking, they compliment me and they say, "Thank you, Rabbi, you were so helpful. I feel much better." The thing is, I didn't say anything. I let them talk to me. Being helpful was simply giving a listening ear, because I didn't say much at all. Perhaps the greatest source of comfort and healing is finding a way to turn pain into a sense of purpose. How can someone use what they have experienced to make the world, as our Jewish heritage wants us to do, to make the world just a little bit better than the way we found it? Perhaps no one taught this more powerfully than the psychotherapist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. He lived from 1905 to 1997, and he wrote many things. But in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which was published in 1946, when the World War II was ending, is one of the most influential books of the 20th century, totally. He wrote about what he learned in the death camps. So Frankl found that even under the most horrifying circumstances, those who found a sense of purpose for their lives had a greater chance of survival. To quote Frankl, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That can never be taken from us. It's our attitude. So to share another famous quote, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. I'm going to say it again. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. So on this Shabbat, we take extra steps to embrace comfort and healing. We humans have an amazing ability to rebuild our lives and find healing in times when we feel that would be anything but impossible. We've all been there. Everybody's at a moment where they go, I can't go on. But instead of saying, why me, we focus on building our faith in God and our rich Jewish traditions, along with time, speaking with others, and finding a purpose. Those are the ingredients that lead us to healing from our deepest pain. You know, Jewish tradition teaches that Kaddish, the memorial prayer for a loved one, is recited for a limited time. I just explained why. The maximum duration is 11 months. Specifically, that is for a parent. The maximum time you're supposed to mourn for a parent is 11 months. That's also the minimum time for a parent. but it's limited. This is rooted in the commandment to honor our parents, which in this Shabbat's Torah reading, we would have read it. It's part of the 10 statements. Honor your father and your mother. Consequently, we say Kaddish for them longer than for others, whom we are not commanded to honor in the same way. So there is often confusion about this practice, with some people saying Kaddish for 11 months for a spouse, a sibling, or a child, or a friend, or a loved one. But traditionally, Kaddish for everyone other than parents, the requirement is 30 days, a month, from Shiva and then 3 weeks after. Shiva 7 plus 3 weeks. That's 30 days. Many feel compelled to say Kaddish for a spouse, siblings, children, and others for 11 months. But that's not required. Why not do it if it helps, though? Nobody says you can't do it. You're just not required to do it for 11 months. Nevertheless, it is important to remember that perpetual mourning is not permitted in Judaism. Ancestor worship is not permitted in Judaism. We don't worship Moshe or Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel. We don't worship them. We remember them, but we don't worship them. Eventually, in Judaism, we don't worship anybody but God, period. Even so, we must stop mourning and move on at a certain time. Acceptance of the loss is a crucial step that allows us to continue with our lives. How do you continue with your life if you're mourning for the rest of your days? How do you do it? So may each enjoy a very beautiful and peaceful Shabbat, and remember the way Baruch Hashem folk read our Haftorah today. Nachamu, Nachamu. May you and I and all of Israel be comforted. And Am Yisrael Chai.